Well, a lot's happened as well. I mean, not least on Tuesday when really, in the Canada Life Premier League, I mean, it's a killer blow really for Corinthians. That late on, a late own goal from Cameron Lee made a 2-1 win for Peel, all but ending Corinthians' hopes of winning the top flight for the first time. And it's not only disappointing for Corinthians, it's been a good season, I think you would say, and you're a representative of Corinthians, but for Cameron Lee as well, he's been fantastic all season, and I think to have an own goal against his name in that important match, he'll be a bit disappointed with that.
Knowing Cameron, not really. It was just one of those. I thought it was a really good game. I think the league was lost when they played Russian, when they got beat 4-1, because up until Tuesday, yes, there was a chance, but they've got St George's to play twice in the league. One's coming up next Tuesday at Ballafletcher, and then they've got to play Geordie's at home. But I think, Geordie's had to lose 3 to give Corinthians a chance to get in there. And let's be fair, I don't think it would have happened. And I've said right the way through that I thought Geordie's would win the league. I've never heard our lot at Corinthians really discuss, we're going to win the league. We've got a chance of winning the league, but never we're going to win it, because I just think it's maybe another year too early. Last year, I think it was a big surprise to the club and to a lot in Manx football that Corinthians finished second. And a few were saying that the other teams were a little bit poorer, and that's what allowed them in. I thought that wasn't quite right. As where with this year, when I look at the top teams, Geordie's a little bit older, but the young guys have come through. Certainly Joe Quayle and done a great job. And Ibanez as well, he's done really well. But I think when I look at Peel, they were stronger. They got quite a few players from Laxey, and I fancied them, and I've got them down to finish second from the start of the season. Rusham were always going to be a big threat. They were a very, very strong team when the transfer window stopped. And then Douglas High School Old Boys are always going to be chipping away. And then you've got, St John's in there clipping as well. But I think it's been a really good season. Here we are, Chris, 2 weeks away from the finish, hopefully. And we still don't know who's going to win the league. Yes, if St George's win tomorrow and Corinthians lose, then they're champions. But I think it's a lot closer now than it used to be, and I think it's good for Manx football.
I think the gap has certainly been bridged this season, but St George's are still setting that standard. The foundations are being put in place, though, for hopefully successful seasons in regards to Peel, Russian, and indeed Corinthians for next season. There have been some very impressive performances from a number of players this campaign.
Definitely, and now you start thinking about Player of the Year, and I think that's really difficult to pick this year, probably the hardest, because normally you look at St George's and you go, right, Kieran McNulty, Callum Morrissey, Frank Jones, Jack McVeigh, Sean Quay, you could pick the lot. But I think this year there's been some, and you're right, some really good performances by the Peel players. Russian, Corinthians, Old Boys have found a little bit of form here and there, and then suddenly it drops off. And St John's have struggled at times to get their best 11 out. But no, it's great to see. Corinthians are a very, very young side. I think with Russian, there's a big future there as well. And when you look at Russian, they've had 3 managers this year. They had Paul Jones, and then Paul obviously stepped down Ireland duties and obviously having an operation as well. Stevie Burns took over temporary, and then Liam Cowan's come in and done a really good job. And credit to everyone. But I think someone needed to challenge St George's, and I think the challenge is there now. But if you look back what's happening at the moment, we've got Junior Cup final coming up on Sunday. St George's are in it. Cal Cup, St George's are probably one of the favourites. So the future bodes well there. Gaz Lloyd's doing a really good job. Johnny Myers is doing the Cal Cup to bring these younger players through. But I just think the other teams now have not necessarily pulled their socks up, but they've got some real nice players coming through. And I think it bodes well for the future. When
it gets to the end of the season and St George's, I mean, let's be honest, they're firm favourites. They only need 4 points from a possible 12 remaining. They're all but home and hosed. The post-season analysis starts, and the other clubs have to work out how do they catch St George's. And I think there were a few people thinking the tide may have turned late last year when they drew on and lost to Russian St George's, but they've showed great character once again, and you'd be a fool to write them off and say that they can't do it again next season.
Well, exactly. You don't expect anything different, to be honest with you, because Chris Bass's standards are so high. Lee Dixon, arguably the best coach on the Isle of Man, standards are really high. If the players do sort of falter a little bit, and I remember speaking to Chris Bass, senior at the start of the season, and just, what your plans, and he knew he was going to have to look at it a little bit different. Callum Morrissey, Johnny Myers, Julian Ringham, Sean Quay are all getting around that 33, 34 age bracket now. And he says, maybe what I expected to get from them at training, I have to back off a little bit, because most of them have got families as well now. And that's what he's done, and that's a good manager for you. And you have to give them credit. Was it 13 out of the last 15? It's only Laxey and Russian who've interrupted that. It's absolutely brilliant. And will we see that again? I don't think we will. Well, I won't in my lifetime. You might in yours. And you've just got to say, well done to St George's. But I do honestly think now other clubs are getting a little bit closer, which, may just push St George's on even further to try and, retain this sort of not undefeated trophy cabinet that they've got. But certainly, keep the trophies coming in, and it keeps the club in a good place.
I was at the Hospital Cup semi-finals last weekend. Corinthians versus Russian was a fantastic game. It was very, very close until, I think, the last third of the match. And two players who impressed for Russian, who were on the losing side that day, Mikey Williams and Josh Kelly, they linked up very, very well. They're very, very good players, and I would say that Russian have got some building blocks in place to have a fantastic season next year.
Very much so. Liam Cowan, who you think, when you look at him as a player, he's one of the best on the island, and due to injury, Liam's had to sort of miss most of the season. And here he is taking over his management ship, and I think he's enjoying it. He was very graceful, I thought, last week as well, because, it went 1-0 to Corinthians and 1-1, then it was 2-1, 2-2, and then Corinthians found their feet and started scoring a few goals. But, when you look at Mike Williams and certainly Josh Kelly, he's in and out because he has other things in his life, work and stuff that he enjoys, and maybe football isn't the be-all and end-all. Mikey Williams is an excellent player, has got himself in the senior Ireland team and deserves to be there. But then there's other people in there as well. Josh Thomas was a great signing, done really well. Matty Kane, I've always liked him, trusty left boot. Dean Kearns in goal. And then defensively, Adam Kajin coming in has helped things. Aaron Hawley's there, but Aaron, I think, is being fair to himself, and he knows that, maybe 1 or 2 years to go. But Stevie Riding is in there, Matty Lamb, there's some Charlie Jackson, there's some really good players, and it does bode well. A great facility, great club, and they've just got to try and keep building on it, try and pick 1 or 2 players up to make them even stronger.